Okay, so Bitcoin. We all know what it is by now, right?
Yeah.
But what's really got my attention is how fast it's becoming like a mainstream thing with these big-time investors.
Yeah, you're right.
And the amount of money flowing into these Bitcoin ETFs is mind-blowing.
It is. And you sent over some research that really breaks it all down.
Yeah, yeah.
And the numbers, they're pretty remarkable. So we're talking about spot Bitcoin ETFs pulling in like what, $110 billion?
Yeah, it's insane.
It's a lot, right? And to put that in perspective, they're only about $15 billion behind gold ETFs.
Which have been around forever.
Yeah, for decades. Gold ETFs have been like the go-to for so long. So
Yeah.
for Bitcoin to be catching up this quickly, it really shows you how seriously people are taking it.
Yeah, it's not just some fringe thing anymore. This is Wall Street jumping in.
Exactly. This is the big leagues.
So what's driving this? Why are these big institutions suddenly so into Bitcoin? Do they actually see it as a real alternative to gold?
It seems that way. I mean, there are a few things going on. First, they're starting to see Bitcoin as a way to protect themselves against inflation, like a hedge.
Right.
Because there's only a limited amount of Bitcoin out there, and it's not controlled by any government or bank. It gives them a sense of security.
Makes sense, that whole safe haven thing that people talk about with gold.
Exactly. Bitcoin's kind of tapping into that same idea, but in the digital world.
Yeah.
And another big thing is regulation. Governments are finally starting to figure out how to deal with Bitcoin, and that makes a huge difference for these institutional investors.
Right, because they need some rules to play by.
Exactly. And as things become more clear, more legitimate, they feel more comfortable putting their money in.
So it's not just about, like, hoping the price goes up.
Mm.
It's about feeling secure and knowing that the whole thing is, like, above board.
Exactly, yeah. And the fact that these Bitcoin ETFs are doing so well only adds to that legitimacy, right? That's like a seal of approval.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if all these smart people are putting billions into this, maybe it's not such a crazy idea.
Exactly.
And then you've got these Ethereum ETFs. Remember all the, like, skepticism around those? People were doubtful.
Yeah, I definitely remember.
And now look at them. They're blowing expectations out of the water.
They are. Since they launched back in July 2024, they've already pulled in over $3 billion.
Yeah. And what I find interesting is that, Bitcoin, it's often seen as that digital gold, right?
Yeah.
But Ethereum, it seems like it's appealing to a different kind of investor.
It is. It's more than just a store of value. Ethereum's got all these different uses, decentralized apps, NFTs, smart contracts. So it's attracting people who are looking beyond just the price.
Yeah, they're betting on the technology itself, the whole ecosystem.
Exactly. They see the long-term potential, all the innovation happening on Ethereum. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. It's really showing how crypto is evolving beyond just being like a digital version of gold. And it seems like even some of the biggest Bitcoin skeptics are starting to change their tune.
You're talking about Ray Dalio, right?
Yes. The guy who used to be so anti-Bitcoin, comparing it to a bubble, and now he's saying it's a valuable hedge against inflation.
I know, right? A complete 180. It's fascinating how his change of heart really reflects a bigger trend. More and more people, even the big names in finance, they're starting to see the potential of Bitcoin. It's a real shift in thinking.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like you were saying earlier, the more these institutions get involved, the more legit the whole thing becomes. It's like this feedback loop.
It is. And it's not just individuals either. We're seeing big companies making these bold moves in the crypto space too.
You're talking about MicroStrategy, right? The company that's basically going all in on Bitcoin.
Exactly. Their Bitcoin holdings are massive. It's crazy. They've accumulated so much that it's comparable to the cash reserves of some of those giant S&P 500 companies like NVIDIA. They're really leading the charge when it comes to corporate Bitcoin adoption.
That's a bold move.
Yeah.
But it also comes with some big questions, right?
Absolutely. While their Bitcoin bet could really pay off big time if the price keeps going up, it also puts them at a lot of risk, you know?
Right. Because Bitcoin can be really volatile.
Exactly. And then you've got those leveraged ETFs that are tied to MicroStrategy's performance. Those investors are taking on even more risk.
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, not at all. It's crucial for people to really understand what they're getting into and not just get caught up in the hype.
So while MicroStrategy's move is a big vote of confidence for Bitcoin, it's important to be aware of the potential downsides too.
Exactly. It really highlights the importance of being smart about investing in crypto, diversifying, and, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, doing your research and not getting swept up in the frenzy.
Exactly.
So MicroStrategy's all in on Bitcoin. But, it's not just Bitcoin that's making moves.
Right.
There's a whole world of altcoins out there with, huge potential.
Mm.
And you sent over this really interesting analysis by Christopher Inks
Oh,
at
yeah.
Texas West Capital.
Yeah, he's got some great insights.
And he's picked out some altcoin projects that he thinks are poised to, really take off.
He does. He's particularly bullish on Render, COTI, and GLM.
Okay, let's dive into those.
Okay.
Starting with Render, RNDR, right? That's the ticker symbol. What's the deal with that one?
Well, Render's pretty cool. It's a decentralized network that basically gives artists and studios access to all this GPU computing power.
Oh, wow.
So they can render those like super complex visual effects, animations, all that graphics intensive stuff.
So it's like a cloud computing platform, but specifically for creative types.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And Inks thinks that RNDR could hit a price range of like $13 to $15.50.
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty big jump from where it is now.
It is. It is.
What's making him so optimistic?
Well, he really believes in the technology. And, there's just this ever-growing demand for, like, high-quality visual content these days, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So he sees a real need for platforms like Render that can provide that computing power, but in a way that's, cost-effective and decentralized.
Interesting. So Render's one to keep an eye on if you're into, the whole creative tech scene. Now, COTI, that's a different beast altogether, right?
Yeah, it is. COTI is all about payments.
Okay.
It wants to be this fast, scalable, and secure payment solution for, businesses and individuals. Think of it as a decentralized PayPal or Visa.
Oh, so they're going after the big players in the traditional financial system.
Exactly. And Inks thinks COTI could reach around 27 cents. His analysis suggests that as more people, especially in places without good access to traditional banking, start using digital payments, COTI could really take off.
Yeah, it seems like they're tapping into a real need.
They are.
Especially as more and more of our lives move online. Okay, last one, GLM. Fill us in on that one.
Okay, so GLM is the token for Golem. And Golem is this really cool platform where people can basically share their unused computing power and earn rewards for it.
Oh, wow. So it's like creating a giant supercomputer by connecting all these individual computers.
Exactly. And Inks is predicting that GLM could rally towards $2. And his thinking is that as the demand for computing power keeps growing, especially for things like AI and machine learning, Golem will become even more valuable.
It's amazing to see how these different altcoins are tackling all these different challenges and needs out there. And if Inks is right about these price predictions, we could be looking at some serious returns.
We could. But it's important to remember that altcoins, they can be even more volatile than Bitcoin,
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, bigger potential rewards, but also higher risks.
Absolutely. Always got to do your research, understand what you're investing in, and never, ever invest more than you can afford to lose.
Absolutely. Golden rule.
But speaking of Bitcoin, let's take a step back for a second and look at the big picture.
Okay.
Because even though there's been some ups and downs lately, the overall trend seems pretty strong. What did you say?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And that's a really important point to remember. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day price swings, and lose sight of the long-term trend.
Right, zoom out and see the forest for the trees.
Exactly. And when you do that with Bitcoin, you see that it's still on this incredible upward trajectory.
Yeah, perspective is everything in this market.
It really is. And I think that brings us to a really crucial point. The year 2025. I mean, it seems like all your sources are pointing to this year as being a potential turning point for the whole crypto market.
Yeah, 2025 keeps coming up. But is it just a feeling? Or are there actual reasons to believe it's going to be so special?
No, there are definitely concrete reasons. There are a few things converging that suggest 2025 could be a real tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
First, we might see some much-needed regulatory clarity, maybe even from the incoming administration. Oh, okay.
And that could remove one of the biggest barriers to institutional investment.
So potentially a more crypto-friendly regulatory environment.
Exactly. And that could be huge. And then on top of that, you could see a surge in institutional investment.
Okay.
Driven by that regulatory clarity and all the success stories we're seeing in the market. I mean, we're already seeing it with those Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, but it could really explode in 2025.
So a perfect storm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
More clarity, attracting more investment, leading to more innovation and a mainstream adoption. It all kind of feeds into itself.
Wow. And then you've got the growing mainstream interest, right?
Right. As more people hear about crypto, start to understand it, and see others making money from it, They're going to want to get in on the action.
Yeah, it's like that whole fear of missing out thing.
Exactly. So yeah, 2025 could be the year crypto really goes mainstream.
It's exciting to think about. But to really grasp what 2025 could hold, we need to break down some specific developments, things to watch for.
So what should we be paying attention to? Okay, so 2025, potentially this huge year for crypto. You mentioned some key things to watch. Let's start with ETFs. What kind of new developments could we see there?
Well, I think we're going to see a ton of new ETFs popping up.
Okay.
Not just Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Right.
Imagine ETFs tracking like Solana, Litecoin, XRP,
Yeah.
maybe even baskets of altcoins like, those ones that Grayscale and Bitwise have proposed?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, more ways for people to get into the crypto market without having to pick and choose individual coins.
Exactly. Less risky, more diversified.
Yeah, that makes sense. That could really open things up for people who are, a little hesitant to jump in head first.
Right, because the easier it is to invest, the more people are going to do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see how that impacts, the market overall.
Yeah, for sure. But ETFs, that's just one part of the story. What about institutional adoption?
Right.
I mean, we talked about MicroStrategy, but what other kinds of moves would really signal that, the big institutions are fully embracing crypto?
Think about the major banks, like Morgan Stanley or Bank of America.
Yeah.
What if they start offering crypto services to their clients?
Oh, wow.
Or what if we get approval for crypto-based options trading?
Right.
That would give those institutional investors some really sophisticated tools to, manage risk.
Yeah, those are some big ifs.
They are. But if those dominoes start falling, it's going to be hard to stop crypto's momentum.
Yeah, I can see that. But, throughout this whole deep dive, there's been this, big question looming.
Oh, yeah.
Regulation.
Right.
What's going to happen with regulation? That's the big unknown.
It is, isn't it? It's like the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
How are they going to classify these cryptocurrencies?
Right.
Securities, commodities, or something else entirely? I mean, that decision is going to have a huge impact on the whole industry.
Yeah, it seems like until we get some clear answers there's always going to be that, element of uncertainty.
Yeah, especially for those big institutions, they need a solid framework to operate in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even with all that uncertainty, it's clear that crypto is not just some, fringe thing anymore.
No, not at all.
It's here to stay. It's making the whole financial world rethink everything.
It is.
So for our listener, who's been following this stuff, what's the key takeaway from all this?
I think the key takeaway is that crypto, it's this rapidly evolving, increasingly legitimate asset class.
Okay.
It's attracting all the big players, it's challenging how things have always been done, and it's offering people new ways to manage their money.
Yeah.
It's really giving people more control over their financial future.
Yeah. I love that.
It's powerful.
It is. This deep dive has been really eye-opening for me. It's made me realize the potential that crypto has to really change the world.
It does.
But it's also made me realize we're just scratching the surface.
Oh, yeah. We are. There's so much more to learn and explore.
Exactly. It's a space that really rewards curiosity,
It does. So stay curious.
Yeah. Stay tuned, do your research, and don't be afraid to, ask questions.
Exactly.
Because the future of finance, it's being written right now. And we all have the chance to be a part of it.
We do. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one question to think about.
Okay.
Are you ready to ride this wave?
That's a good one. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Of course.
And until next time, stay curious.